The hum of the boardroom's air conditioner did little to cool the simmering unease in Caleb Wright's chest. He sat at the head of the long obsidian conference table, a figure of composed power. Broad shoulders, tailored charcoal suit, hair pulled neatly back, expression unreadable except for the faint tightness around his gaze. The executives continued their presentation, the projection screen showing rising numbers, expanding markets, increasing shareholder satisfaction. But Caleb's mind was not in the boardroom. It was with her, Scarlet. Her laugh, that warm, ringing sound that seemed to take up space in the room without ever trying to. She had smiled at him yesterday, not because she had to, not because she knew who he was, not because he was the heir of an empire, but because she was kind, genuine, the rarest breed of human in the circles Caleb lived in. And she kissed Liam, not him. That fact shouldn't have mattered. It shouldn't have unsettled him, but it did. His phone vibrated again, steady, insistent. He ignored it until it vibrated once more, 3 times in a row. That pattern was reserved for only one person, Liam. He slid the phone out onto the table and peeked. From Liam. Message. Miss Scarlet said she's working the late shift today. Can we see her? Can we? Can we? Dad, please? Please, Daddy. Caleb nearly smirked almost. But Caleb Wright, vice president of the Wright Diamond Corporation, did not smirk in boardrooms. Mr. Wright, the lead strategist prompted, noticing his distraction, would you like to review the proposed distribution logistics for integrating the new tea line into our hotel branches? Caleb set the phone down, his mask snapping back into place with effortless precision. Yes, he said coolly. Continue. But when he spoke again, his voice held a depth of calm power that shifted the atmosphere. However, Caleb added, fingertips pressed together, eyes cutting sharp as a glass blade. If we are expanding the tea line, we must secure the supplier first. Nothing moves forward without that. He didn't say it aloud, but they all understood exactly which supplier he meant. Her, the Herbal Twist restaurant, the quiet gem in the heart of Brighton where she worked, where she laughed, where she existed, unaware that her presence had started to unravel parts of him he hadn't realized were still breakable. Yes, sir, his board answered as one. The meeting continued, decisions made, directives assigned, but Caleb's pulse had already shifted direction. He was going to see her today, not because Liam wanted to, because he did. Scarlet stepped out of the staff locker room of Herbal Twist with a fresh apron tied neatly around her waist. Today had been draining, even before the shift began. The moment she woke, reality returned like a cold splash to the face. The same reality she had been living for nearly 2 years. Scarlet Barnes, former heiress to the Barnes empire, former top law student, former fiancé to Brighton's golden boy. Now Scarlet Barnes was nobody, a server, a footnote, a forgotten name swallowed by the city's glittering skyline. She tightened her ponytail, exhaling through her nose. No matter how many days passed, part of her still waited to wake up and realize it had been a nightmare. But her reflection in the staff mirror insisted otherwise. The tired eyes, the faint shadows beneath them, the smile she forced into place every morning. But today, something had been different. A boy had called her his future wife, and a man had looked at her like she mattered, like her presence meant something to him. And she hadn't known who he was. He hadn't introduced himself with wealth or title. He was simply Caleb, Mr. Pooh. She snorted quietly to herself, covering her mouth. She didn't know why that nickname made her chest feel warm. She stepped into the dining area where customers began to fill tables. The lights were soft, warm golden, made to mimic lamplight at dusk. A violin instrumental played softly through speakers. The air smelled of orange blossoms and cinnamon. She retrieved a tray and moved toward a couple flagging her down. "Welcome to Herbal Twist. What may I get for you today?" she asked, voice gentle, professional, even though a small part of her worried. Always, that Luca might walk in again. He didn't. At least, not tonight. But fate had other plans. The bell above the door chimed. 2 figures entered. One small, one tall. Scarlet froze mid-step. Liam, bright-eyed and beaming, waved both arms in the air, as though greeting the sun itself. "Miss Scarlet, I have arrived." Half the restaurant turned. Liam didn't care. He proudly marched forward with his tiny steps, followed by Caleb Wright, whose mere existence shifted the atmosphere the way wealth, presence, and quiet authority naturally did. Scarlet blinked, then blinked again, because today, Caleb was no longer Mr. Pooh. Today, he was every inch a man carved from the peak of privilege. Sharp suit, expensive watch glimmering subtle beneath the sleeve, hairstyled, posture effortless and commanding. He didn't look like he belonged in her world. He looked like someone carved out of the kind she'd been locked out of. Her heart stumbled. Liam ran to her and wrapped his arms tight around her waist. "You came," Scarlet whispered, more surprised than she meant to sound. "Of course I came," Liam said, tilting his chin up proudly. "A man keeps his promises." Scarlet laughed. Caleb watched her laugh, and something in him warmed. "Miss Scarlet," Caleb greeted, voice a smooth, warm baritone. "I hope we're not interrupting." "Oh no, not at all," she replied, though her pulse betrayed her. Liam tugged her hand. "We're here to dine with you." Scarlet blinked. "With me?" "Yes," Liam said. "We're your dates." Caleb choked on air. Liam. "What?" "It's true." Liam shrugged. "Dad picked his best suit and everything." Scarlet nearly dropped her tray. Caleb cleared his throat, ears faintly tinged with pink. "I suggested we stop by," Caleb said evenly. "Since you work here, and since Liam wanted to see you." Again, he should not have clarified. He did. Scarlet smiled, soft, warm, glowing like light dancing across honey. "Well then," she said, "let me find you a good table." They sat near the window, the sky beyond streaked in the colors of a peach sunset. Liam talked. He talked a lot. He talked about school, about cartoons, about how he once tried to cook pasta and nearly set an entire kitchen on fire, about how his dad can't sing, about how Uncle Boris can actually sing surprisingly well. Caleb placed a hand over his face. Scarlet laughed through nearly all of it. She had not laughed like this and she couldn't remember. When she returned with tea, Caleb looked up at her. "Scarlet," he said gently, "may I ask you something?" Her heart thumped. How long have you been working here?" She hesitated. He noticed the hesitation. She could have lied. Said she simply liked it here. Said paid fine. Said she had dreams of opening her own cafe. But something in Caleb's eyes, the quiet sincerity, made lying feel like a betrayal. "I used to be something else," she said quietly. Caleb waited. Patient, respectful, unpressuring. Scarlet swallowed. "I studied law," she said finally. "Top of my class. I had a job lined up. A future. A purpose." Caleb didn't move. "But my ex," she continued, voice thinning, "used his influence to make sure I never got to sit for the bar. Never got hired. Now no company in this city will touch me." She laughed softly, bitterly. "So I ended up here, serving tea." The restaurant's warm ambience hummed around them, but between the three of them, silence settled like fine silk. Liam looked up at her, not with pity, but with something fierce. "You'll be a lawyer again," he said, certainty ringing in his voice. "And you'll be the best one in the whole city." Scarlet blinked. Her eyes stung, not because of his words, but because no one had said them to her in years. Caleb watched her expression, his jaw tightening, not in pity, but in a quiet storm of controlled fury. Someone had taken everything from her. Someone had ensured she stayed pressed beneath their heel. Someone had made her believe she had no power left. Caleb, Wright, did not like people who abused power, especially when the person they crushed was sitting in front of him, laughing softly, trying to pretend she wasn't hurt. "Scarlet," he said slowly, voice low, anchored certain. "If you want your life back, I can help you get it." Her breath stumbled. She stared at him, uncertain, overwhelmed, because she had been helped before. People had offered sympathy before. But Caleb Wright was not offering sympathy. He was offering power. Real power. Liam looked between the two of them. "Oh no," he whispered dramatically. "Dad, are you trying to steal my wife?" Scarlet burst out laughing again. Laughter that left her leaning over the table, hand on her stomach. Caleb pinched the bridge of his nose. We've talked about this, Caleb reminded, eyes closing. She is not. She kissed me, Liam said proudly. You? 0 kisses. Scarlet wheezed aloud. Caleb exhaled, defeated. For the first time in years, his shoulders loosened, and Scarlet watched them, and wondered, where had this man been hiding his real smile? Night settled. The restaurant began closing. Scarlet walked them to the entrance. Thank you for tonight, Caleb said, voice soft. Thank you for coming, Scarlet replied. Liam hugged her again. Caleb hesitated. Just a second. Just long enough for the moment to breathe. Scarlet, he said quietly, I hope this won't be the last time. She looked up into those blue eyes. Warm. Sincere. Safe. It won't, she whispered. Her heartbeat fluttered like wings. Liam beamed. Caleb smiled, the real one. And something shifted. Not loud. Not sudden. But deep. Like the first thread of fate pulling tight. Like the quiet beginning of a storm. A storm that would change everything. Scarlet walked home under the velvet blue night, the city lights washing the sidewalks in ribbons of gold. Her steps were slow, not from exhaustion, but from the lingering warmth that still clung to her chest. Liam's laughter echoed in her memory. Caleb's voice, low, gentle, steady, played like a comforting hum just behind her heartbeat. It won't be the last time. She had told him that. She had promised. But Scarlet was a woman who knew exactly what life did to promises. She clutched her purse strap a little tighter. Brighton City always glimmered. Wealth towered in glass skyscrapers, reflecting the moon like polished silver. But beneath all that beauty lay shadow, a shadow Scarlet had learned to walk in. The sidewalks she now called home were far from the gilded halls she was raised to tread. She passed peeling walls, rusted gates, stairwell lights that flickered like tired fireflies. 1 year ago, Scarlet would have never stepped foot in this district. Now she lived here. She unlocked a small studio apartment on the 4th floor of a rundown building, its hallway smelling faintly of old newspapers and fried onions. But the space was hers. Not taken from her. Not controlled. Not touched by Luca. She tossed her keys into a chipped ceramic bowl, slipped off her shoes, and sat on the floor beside her single small window. Her heart still felt full, but her mind began to whisper, Scarlet, men like Caleb don't show up in your story without reason. She drew her knees to her chest. The whisper grew quieter. She chose peace. Just for tonight. Just for this one quiet, trembling breath. She fell asleep with a smile. Across the city, in the penthouse high above glittering skylines, lights spilled from floor-to-ceiling windows. Caleb stood alone in his office. If the word office could be used for a room so expansive, its walls lined with curated art and dark, espresso-colored wood. He leaned one hand against the glass, eyes trained on the view far below. He thought he could control it. He thought he could compartmentalize. But Scarlet had found her way under his skin as quietly as rain soaks into earth. He didn't fall for beauty, not anymore. Beauty was common. Beauty was staged. Beauty was curated and plastic and cosmetic. But kindness was rare. He took a slow breath. On the leather couch, Liam slept curled like a cat, tiny arm draped around a plush Winnie the Pooh doll. Boris sat nearby on watch, typing on his phone quietly. Caleb's phone buzzed. Message from Kyle. His brother board wants your proposal documents revised by morning. Don't be late. Caleb didn't respond. Kyle took work seriously. Too seriously, perhaps. But Kyle didn't have anything else. No child. No one to protect. No one to lose. Caleb had both gained and lost in one breath the day Liam was born. His life had become defined by responsibility. Structure. Rules. No attachments. No vulnerability. He had built walls. Scarlet had walked past them, laughing. He exhaled sharply through his nose and ran a hand through his hair. No, he would not fall. He could not fall. He had Liam, and Liam had already chosen her. She kissed me, Dad. You? 0 kisses. Caleb shut his eyes in a slow, pained, almost amused surrender. Liam was going to be a problem, but perhaps the problem had already begun long before today. The next morning, Scarlet arrived at work earlier than usual. She liked the quiet before the restaurant filled with chatter and tea steam. She took her place behind the counter and arranged fresh flowers into vases. Hibiscus, jasmine, wild thyme, lavender. Her hands moved delicately, the way they once moved over textbooks and case files. She had a lawyer's mind still, sharp, disciplined, endlessly aware. But now she used it to fold napkins. The bell over the door chimed once again. Scarlet didn't even look up. "Welcome to Herbal Twist, table 4. Silence answered her. Her breath caught in her throat when she did look up. It was Courtney. And behind her, Luca, her sister. No, her adopted sister, wore pastel silk and diamonds that dripped like frozen tears. She looked like a woman born from wealth. Perfectly styled, perfectly composed, perfectly trained in the art of pretending to be kind while destroying everything she touched. Luca wore the same charming smirk Scarlet once mistook for affection, a smile that used to make her feel seen. Now it only reminded her of suffocation. "Scarlet Barnes," Courtney said softly, voice sweet as poison honey. Scarlet felt her pulse spike, but her face remained calm. She had learned to mask around wolves. "What do you want?" she asked, tone steady. Luca stepped forward, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Only to check on you." "I don't need your concern," Scarlet replied. Courtney's lips curled. "Oh, honey, you do." Desperately. Scarlet's fingers curled around the countertop edge. "You had everything," Courtney continued, strolling slowly toward her like a cat toying with a bird. "A future, a father's company, a name that meant something, and you threw it all away for a man who didn't even stay." Scarlet didn't look away, because the truth was more painful when left silent. Courtney leaned closer, voice lowering. "You still don't get it. Luca didn't leave you. I took him from you." There it was. The confession. The dagger she had always known was there. Scarlet did not give her the satisfaction of pain. She only smiled. Not soft, not sweet, sharp. "Then you should learn something, Courtney." Courtney blinked. Scarlet leaned in just enough to ensure she heard every word. "If you have to steal a man to keep him, you never had him." Courtney's eyes flared. Luca's jaw tensed. The bell above the door chimed. Scarlet didn't need to turn to know who had just entered. She felt him. Caleb. He walked inside without the armor of sunglasses or the disguise of casual wear. He was a storm in tailored charcoal and winter blue eyes, power wrapped in effortless grace. He saw Scarlet. He saw Luca. He saw the tremor in the air between them, and his expression changed, not visibly, not dramatically, but in the smallest shift of silence. Liam ran up behind him, bright and unbothered. "Miss Scarlet," he chirped. The sound was a lifeline. Scarlet knelt and scooped him up, and Liam hugged her like nothing in the world mattered except her existence. Caleb watched the way she held his son. He watched the way Liam's face glowed in her presence. He watched the way Scarlet smiled. Something clicked into place inside him. Quiet, undeniable, unbreakable. Luca stepped forward. Well, Luca drawled. "Scarlet's made some new friends." Caleb lifted his gaze to Luca, expression cool, composed, elegant as polished steel. "Friends," Caleb repeated, voice smooth. "No." Scarlet looked up. The entire restaurant went still. Caleb's next words were not loud, but they were absolute. "She is under my protection." Scarlet's breath stopped. Liam blinked. Courtney's face drained pale. Luca froze, because he knew exactly who Caleb was. Caleb Wright, vice president of the Wright Diamond Corporation. A man whose reach could end companies with a phone call. A man whose name carried weight like thunder. Scarlet didn't ask for this. Caleb didn't ask permission. He simply stated truth. Luca laughed, sharp, forced. "You? Protecting her? From who?" Caleb's eyes never left his. "From anyone." Scarlet's pulse thundered in her ears. She realized something then. Not that Caleb was powerful. She already knew power. She grew up with power. But Caleb didn't use his power to own. He used it to shield. And that was far more dangerous. Luca stepped back. Courtney swallowed hard. They retreated because they understood what lines had just been drawn. When they were gone, Scarlet gently set Liam down. She did not speak. Caleb did not speak. Their silence crackled like lightning. Finally, Scarlet whispered, voice barely audible. Why? Caleb looked at her, and for the first time his walls did not hold. Because someone should have protected you. Her eyes burned. She turned away, not because she was weak, but because no one had spoken those words to her in years. Liam held her hand softly, grounding her. Caleb watched them, both of them, and something inside him settled into place like a final puzzle piece. Scarlet wiped her eyes once and breathed out. I need to go get tea for your table. She turned to leave. Caleb stopped her, not by touch, but by voice. Scarlet. She paused. He held her gaze. No promises, no demands, no expectations, just truth. We're not done. You hear me? Scarlet swallowed. She nodded once, then disappeared into the kitchen. Caleb exhaled. Liam exhaled dramatically beside him. So, Dad? Caleb didn't look down. Yes. That was totally to impress my wife, right? Caleb closed his eyes. Liam, stop calling her your wife. No. Caleb sighed. Boris quietly snorted behind them. And so, the quiet began to break. Not with explosions, not with declarations, but with the smallest shift of fate. A thread pulling tighter, a storm beginning to gather, a story no longer waiting. Scarlet didn't return to the front of the restaurant immediately. She hid in the kitchen, hands braced against the stainless steel countertop, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. The room smelled of jasmine steam and honey glaze, familiar and safe, but her pulse thundered with the echo of Caleb's voice. She is under my protection. No one had ever claimed her like that. Not possessively, not dominantly, but defensively, as though her safety mattered. Her breath trembled. She closed her eyes and pressed the heel of her palm to her brow. Get it together, she whispered, but her hands still shook. Out front, Caleb sat at a corner table with Liam, who happily swung his legs beneath his seat. Boris sat just behind them, watchful but relaxed. The restaurant was full now, soft chatter, clinking porcelain, sunlight spilling warm across wooden floors. But their table remained its own gravity. Caleb waited. He didn't tap his fingers, didn't check his phone, didn't shift in his seat. He simply waited. Not for coffee, not for service, for Scarlet. He hadn't realized until today just how many years it had been since he waited for something without impatience. He lived in efficiency and structure, contracts, schedules, obligations. People didn't make him wait. He dictated tempo. He controlled pace. But Scarlet had awakened something old, something human, and that was far more dangerous than power. Liam leaned forward, eyes wide with dramatic seriousness. Dad, he whispered loudly. You said we're not done with her. Caleb gave him a look, not stern, but tired. Yes. So what does that mean? Liam pressed, leaning his entire small body across the table. Are we going to adopt her? Or, are you going to marry her, and I'll call her Mommy, and we'll all live in a giant castle? Boris choked. Caleb stared straight ahead. No. Liam blinked. But, no. Liam thought for a long moment. So we invite her over for pizza night? Caleb hesitated. This was where men like him made mistakes, where emotion cracked open a door logic couldn't close. Maybe, Caleb said quietly. Liam gasped, hands clasping his cheeks like he just witnessed the gates of heaven open. That means yes, he said to Boris. Boris nodded solemnly. That absolutely means yes. Caleb shot him a look of betrayed silence. Scarlet stepped out of the kitchen. Her face was calm again, not blank, not cold, just composed. She carried a tray, 2 tea sets, honey, lemon slices, and a small saucer of shortbread biscuits in the shape of stars. She approached the table, her steps steady. Liam brightened instantly. Star cookies. Scarlet smiled, setting the tray down. Yes, I remember you liked them. Liam nodded, so fast his hair bounced. Caleb watched her. Scarlet didn't look at him at first. She poured tea for Liam with careful hands, then for Caleb, then for herself. Only then did she look up, meeting Caleb's gaze directly. What you did earlier, she began. You didn't ask for it, Caleb finished. Scarlet's breath paused. No, I didn't. His voice didn't shift, not soft, not apologetic, simply true. You don't owe me gratitude, or explanation, or anything at all. He He leaned back slightly, shoulders relaxed but eyes locked on hers. But you also don't face people like that alone. Her fingers curled loosely around her cup. They're not your problem, she said softly. Caleb didn't blink. They made themselves mine. Scarlet inhaled, and that was when she realized something. Caleb didn't see her as fragile. He didn't see her as broken. He didn't see her as a victim. He saw her as someone who fought alone for too long. And he simply stepped into the space beside her. Not in front, not over her, beside her. That was new, unfamiliar, disarming, dangerous. She needed to tread carefully, very carefully. But Liam, sweet, bright, unstoppable Liam, leaned across the table suddenly and touched her hand. Scarlet, yes. Can we go to the park today? Me, you, and Dad? He needs fresh air, so he stops being boring. Caleb closed his eyes again. Liam. Scarlet choked down a laugh, small but real. I have work until 5. Liam nodded gravely, like receiving orders on a battlefield. 5 o'clock park date. Boris, schedule it. Boris already did. Caleb didn't bother fighting it. He had lost the moment Liam decided something. 5:12 p.m. The city park. Golden afternoon sunlight poured through the trees, painting everything in warm honey. The leaves rustled softly in the breeze, and children's laughter carried from the playground nearby. Scarlet walked beside Liam, who held her hand loosely, swinging it back and forth as he talked animatedly about his school projects, his favorite dinosaurs, and his firm belief that vegetables were a government conspiracy. Caleb walked slightly behind, hands in his pockets, observing, not watching her but watching them. This simple domestic peace felt like a memory he never had. At one point, Liam darted off to climb the jungle gym, leaving them standing close enough that the air between them warmed. Scarlet glanced at Caleb. Liam is incredible. Caleb exhaled slowly, gaze softening in a way she had never seen from him. He saved my life. She looked at him, really looked at him. Caleb didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. Scarlet nodded. Silence settled. Not uncomfortable, but thick with gravity. Then, softly, Caleb, she said, I don't want you to get involved with Luca. I don't want your life tangled in mine. Caleb looked at her, expression unreadable. Scarlet, I made a choice. I don't regret it, but you don't know what he's capable of, and he doesn't know what I'm capable of. Something flickered in Scarlet's chest. Fear, yes, but not of Caleb. Fear of how quickly the ground under her life was shifting, and how deeply some part of her wanted to let it shift. Liam called out from the monkey bars. Scarlet, Dad, watch me. I'm a dragon. Both turned instinctively the same moment. Both laughed softly the same way. And something threaded between them again. Not romance. Not lust. Not longing. Recognition. Two souls that had survived something they didn't speak aloud. They stayed until the sun dipped low and street lamps flickered awake. Liam grew tired, eyelids heavy, steps slow. Scarlet knelt, tying his shoelace when it loosened. Caleb watched her again, not because she was beautiful, but because she was gentle. He hadn't known how much he missed gentleness. At the corner of the street, they paused. This was where their paths split. Scarlet hesitated. Caleb waited. Liam yawned, clinging to his father's coat. Scarlet's voice was soft. Thank you for today. Caleb nodded once. Thank you. For him. For Liam. For the laughter. For the quiet. Scarlet stepped back. Then Caleb said something he hadn't planned. Scarlet. She stopped. His voice was lower now. Bare. Real. You don't have to be alone anymore. Scarlet's heart clenched. She didn't answer. She couldn't answer. If she answered, if she let herself, she would fall. And she knew how falling ended. So she turned. Walked away. Didn't look back. But Caleb did. He watched her until the night swallowed her silhouette. Slowly, deliberately, he spoke to Boris without shifting his gaze. Find out everything about Luca Barnes. Boris nodded once. Yes, sir. Liam slept against his shoulder. Caleb carried his son home. And somewhere deep beneath the city lights, a storm began to move. Not loud, not violent, but inevitable. Rain swept the city 2 days later. Not a storm yet, Just the kind of rain that taps on windows like memory. Small, persistent, whispering the things you pretend you don't feel. Scarlet stood by the window of her tiny apartment, watching it fall. The city below blurred in watery smears of headlights and neon signs. Her fingers rested lightly on the glass. 2 days. 2 days since the park. 2 days since laughter had felt real. 2 days since a man spoke to her as if her heart was something worth sheltering. 2 days since Caleb had said, "You don't have to be alone anymore." Scarlet inhaled, slow, steady, practiced. She had felt watched before. Held. Claimed. Possessed. Luca didn't love. He owned. Caleb didn't own. He saw. That difference was dangerous. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Scarlet's spine straightened. She considered ignoring it. She answered. Hello. Static. Then a voice she had once kissed. Once trusted. Once believed she might spend eternity beside. Luca. Scarlet. He murmured, voice smooth as silk laid over glass. I don't appreciate being dismissed. She closed her eyes. There's nothing between us to dismiss. A low laugh. Come now. Don't pretend. His tone sharpened. You think Caleb Wright can protect you? You think he understands you? He has no idea who you are. What you are. Scarlet's jaw tightened, but she didn't rise to his bait. Not anymore. My life doesn't belong to you. Everything you are, Luca whispered, voice turning cold, exists because of me. Scarlet responded with 4 quiet words. You never had me. Silence. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Rage. It came like a drop of poison. You'll regret saying that. The call ended. Scarlet didn't tremble, but her pulse beat like wings. Meanwhile, Wright Corporation headquarters. The main boardroom was all glass and marble, polished to reflective sheen. Executives sat rigidly at the long table, papers stacked neatly, screens glowing with bar graphs and projections. Caleb stood at the head of the table. Not seated, never seated. His authority was not in words. It was in presence. Tall, composed, the controlled force of a storm waiting to be aimed. Kyle, his brother, sat beside him, dark suit immaculate, expression sharp, tone clipped. We need to expand into the East Asian gemstone market by Q2, Kyle said. We already missed the mining rights acquisition window. The only available entry point now is Barnes Holdings, Luca's family company. The name hung in the room like a spark held near gasoline. Caleb's expression did not change, but his silence did. A shift, a temperature drop, a pause that meant calculation. The board waited. Kyle looked at Caleb. Well, Caleb's voice was quiet. I will not partner with Barnes Holdings. Kyle stared. We don't have a choice. Caleb looked him in the eyes, calm, steady, immovable. There is always a choice. Kyle exhaled sharply. You're letting personal issues influence business decisions. Caleb turned slightly. My personal life is not up for board discussion. Kyle scoffed, under his breath but loud enough. The atmosphere tightened. Executives glanced back and forth. Boris, standing behind Caleb, shifted slightly, weight balanced, alert, watchful. Kyle leaned forward, voice low, biting. She's just some girl, Caleb. Don't throw away a multi-million-dollar entry deal because... Caleb didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Kyle. His brother stopped. Do not finish that sentence. Kyle sat back, jaw tight, eyes dark. Power shifted across the table like wind over a quiet sea. Finally, Caleb turned to the board. Meeting adjourned. No one protested. No one even breathed until he walked out. In a private elevator, Kyle followed him. You're making a mistake, Kyle said quietly, tension threading through every syllable. You don't. Caleb stopped walking. Not abruptly. Just one clean, precise halt. Kyle froze behind him. Caleb didn't look back when he spoke. I know what I'm doing. Kyle's voice broke, not with anger, but something far more dangerous. Fear. You're going to get hurt. Caleb turned. His eyes were steady. Not burning, not fierce, just honest. It's already too late for that. Kyle stared, because he knew what Caleb didn't say. I already started caring. And once Caleb cared, once his heart locked onto something, it was permanent, unshakable, unrecoverable. The elevator doors opened. Neither spoke again. Later that night, Scarlet's apartment. The rain had stopped. The city glistened like polished obsidian. Scarlet sat curled on her worn sofa, hot tea steaming in her hands. The room was dim, only a small lamp glowing on the shelf. Her eyes wandered to the single-framed photograph she still kept. A girl of 17, before law school, before Luca, before betrayal, before she learned what power without kindness looked like. She had been bright then, open, full of belief in people. Scarlet rested her forehead on her knee. "Don't go back," she whispered to the memory in the frame. A knock sounded at the door. Not loud. 2 taps. Soft. Her breath faltered. She stood, approached the door, looked through the peephole. Her chest loosened. Caleb, not dressed in business armor tonight, just a dark sweater, rain still clinging to the edges of his hair, as if he had walked here. Not driven. Walked. She opened the door slowly. Caleb didn't speak. Scarlet didn't ask why he came. They simply looked at each other for a long, quiet moment in the doorway, city noise humming below. Finally, Scarlet stepped aside. He entered. He didn't look around the apartment, not judging, not examining. He didn't care about its size or furniture or simplicity. He cared about her. Scarlet set her tea down and folded her arms lightly. Not defensive, just bracing. Luca called. Caleb's expression didn't shift. What did he say? That I'll regret letting him go. Caleb nodded once. He's afraid. Scarlet blinked. Of what? Caleb stepped closer, slowly, giving her space if she wanted it. She didn't step back. He's afraid of what happens when a woman learns she can live without him. Scarlet's throat tightened. She hadn't expected that answer. Caleb's voice lowered. Not rough, not loud, just true. What he wants is control. Not love. Not loyalty. Control. You broke that. He won't forgive it. Scarlet exhaled, the sound trembling. I don't want you tangled in this. Caleb's jaw flexed. A brief flash of something sharp. I'm already tangled. Scarlet's pulse stumbled. She opened her mouth. Maybe to argue. Maybe to warn him away. Maybe to ask him why. But Caleb spoke before she could. Scarlet. Her name in his mouth was quiet. We don't have to call this anything. We don't have to rush. We don't have to figure it out right now. Her breath caught. But you're not alone in this anymore. Her eyes shined. Not tears. Just something breaking open. Something that had been locked away for too long. She didn't step into his arms. He didn't reach for her. They simply stood close enough that the world narrowed to shared breathing. She whispered barely sound. Stay for a little while? Caleb nodded. Yes. He sat on the floor beside the window. Scarlet sat beside him. They watched the city together. No touch. No confession. No kiss. Just 2 souls resting. And for the first time in years, Scarlet slept without fear, and Caleb slept without walls. But elsewhere in the city, in a marble penthouse with too much glass and too little warmth, Luca poured himself a drink, hand tight around the crystal tumbler. His eyes were cold, his voice colder. Find out everything you can about her. Luca ordered the man standing opposite him, tall, sharp-eyed, wearing a black suit that did not belong to boardrooms. Friends, work, apartment, anyone she speaks to. I want her life in my hands again. The man nodded once. Yes, sir. Luca lifted the glass to his lips. A smile ghosted across his face. Not warm, not happy, predatory. She thinks she has protection now. He drank. She has no idea what she just started. And above the city, clouds began to gather. Not rain this time. A storm. One that knew every name in this story and would not leave quietly. Morning rose slow and golden over Brighton City. A hush lay across the skyline, the kind of stillness that happens before life remembers it needs to breathe. Scarlet had fallen asleep beside the window, legs folded underneath her, head resting lightly against the sofa's armrest. Caleb sat beside her, not touching, not intruding, simply present. He had stayed, not because of obligation, not because she needed rescuing, but because something in her silence matched something in his. The dawn traced them in soft light. Scarlet stirred first. She blinked slowly, warmth blooming across her face as memory returned. Caleb, her apartment, the quiet night. No fear, He didn't look like he had slept much. His shoulders leaned back against the wall, head tilted slightly, eyes half open, but he didn't look tired. He looked awake, alive, present, a man accustomed to carrying weights no one else could see. When he noticed her watching him, his lips tugged into something that was not quite a smile, but held the same gentleness. "Morning." Scarlet nodded softly. "Morning." Silence settled again, comfortable this time. But the world has a way of reminding us that peace is temporary. Her phone chimed. Scarlet didn't move to check it, but Caleb did. "Go ahead," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." She reached for the phone on the coffee table. One new notification. Work group chat, manager. "Scarlet, this is your third late call in this month. We need you here in 15 minutes, or don't bother coming at all." Scarlet exhaled slowly. A bitter, familiar ache echoed beneath her ribs. She rubbed her forehead. "If I rush, maybe—" "Scarlet." Caleb's voice was calm. "Steady. Take a breath." She didn't argue. She sat back. He stood, stretching lightly, then turned to her. "What time is your shift?" She looked away. 6 a.m. to 4. "But I usually get called earlier than that." "That happens when certain people call ahead." She didn't need to say Luca's name. Caleb's expression sharpened, the quiet kind of anger that didn't burn outward, but inward, forging itself like steel. "What time did you close last night?" he asked. "Almost 1. And they expect you back before dawn?" His voice stayed even. "That isn't employment. That's leverage." Scarlet didn't respond. He took her silence for confirmation. "Get dressed," he said softly. "I'll take you." She looked up quickly. "No, you don't have to." "I know." His tone didn't shift. "I want to." Something inside her chest moved, almost painfully. She nodded. At the herbal twist, the morning rush had already begun. Servers moved quickly, trays balancing steaming cups of hibiscus and elderflower tea, fresh bread, and morning pastries. Scarlet entered with her hair pulled into a neat, hurried bun. The door chimed. Conversation flickered. Several heads turned, but it was the manager who approached first. A man named Branson. Sharp suit, sharper tongue. A man who bowed to power, even when he pretended otherwise. He didn't greet her. He didn't ask if she was okay. He simply sneered. "Well," he drawled, "look who decided to show up. Sleeping in, Scarlet? Or entertaining overnight company?" Scarlet inhaled slowly, steadying herself before responding. She didn't need to defend her dignity. But Branson didn't give her time. "You know, we run a business here. Not a charity house for—" "Excuse me." The voice did not need to be loud, because it was Caleb. Every sound in the cafe lowered as if the air itself obeyed him. Branson straightened, expression shifting instantly from predatory to fearful recognition. Mr. Wright." He fumbled. I didn't realize." "No," Caleb said simply. "You didn't." He stepped forward, not aggressive, not confrontational, just undeniably unmovable. "This woman," Caleb said, his gaze still fixed on Branson, "was threatened with job termination for arriving 10 minutes past her unpaid shift start. After working until 1 in the morning." Branson's throat bobbed. Scarlet froze. Caleb continued. "If you ever speak to her like that again, or retaliate against her in any form, professional or otherwise, this entire establishment will cease to exist before the week ends." Branson's face paled to chalk. Caleb didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Dominance didn't require volume. Branson tried to recover, forcing a swallow. "Oh, of course. My apologies, Miss Scarlet. Please proceed to your station." Scarlet didn't move. Not until Caleb turned to her, expression softening, eyes lowering to hers alone. "You don't owe him silence," Caleb said softly, too quietly for anyone else to hear. "You never owed any of them silence." She swallowed hard. He stepped back, giving her space. "I'll return for you later," he murmured. She nodded. He left. Scarlet exhaled. Her hands weren't shaking. They were steady, like something inside her had finally stopped running. Later that afternoon, Barnes Holdings headquarters. Lucas sat behind a desk made of imported black marble, hands clasped tightly. His assistant entered. "We have a background report you requested." Scarlet Barnes. "All employment history." Apartment details, daily schedule, and Luca asked, voice dangerously quiet. The assistant hesitated, and it appears she has recently been seen in the company of Caleb Wright. The crystal pen in Luca's hand snapped in half. Ink bled across his palm. He didn't notice. His voice was ice. Bring me everything you have on the Wright family's current legal vulnerabilities. The assistant nodded quickly and rushed out. Luca leaned back in his chair. A slow, deliberate breath. A smile, small, sharp, curved his lips. So, he murmured, the game begins. Meanwhile, Third Diamond Hotel penthouse. Liam sat cross-legged on the giant living room rug, crayons spread everywhere, drawing something unusually serious for a child his age. Boris walked past, paused. Is that your father? He asked, pointing to the tall figure in the drawing. Yes, Liam answered simply. And the person next to him? Liam's tiny mouth curved into a secretive smile. His princess. Boris blinked. Scarlet. Liam clarified with a tiny sigh, like saying her name itself was sunshine. Boris nodded slowly. And the person over there? Liam's hand pressed dark crayon strokes. Shadow, shape, presence, looming. That's the bad man. Boris crouched down. What's his name? Liam's green eyes lifted. Too knowing, too quiet, too old for six. He whispered, Luca. Evening, outside Herbal Twist. Scarlet stepped out of the restaurant. Exhaustion heavy but spirits strangely light. Caleb's car was waiting, sleek, black, understated. He stood leaning against it, jacket off, sleeves rolled, hair pushed back by the wind. He looked up when she walked toward him. No smile, but his gaze warmed. Long day? He asked. Scarlet exhaled a laugh. The longest? Come on, he said gently. You need dinner. She hesitated. Then she nodded. They didn't go far. A quiet bistro overlooking the river. Warm lights. Soft music. A place where the world felt smaller, safer. They sat across from each other. And for the first time, Scarlet spoke. Not the polished summary. Not the version she survived by telling people. The truth. She told him about law school. About her dreams before Luca. About Courtney, the girl her parents adopted and then began loving more than her. About how Luca charmed her, praised her, guided her, then used her father's company's hidden debts to take her life apart. About how every job she found mysteriously vanished. How every door closed only after phone calls she never heard but always felt. She didn't cry. She didn't break. She spoke with quiet scars. When she finished, there was no pity in Caleb's eyes. Just understanding. And anger, cold, protective, controlled. He reached across the table, not to hold her hand, but to offer it. She hesitated, then placed hers in his. And there it was. Not fireworks. Not rushing heat. Something steadier. Something like, I am here. I am listening. I am not leaving when it gets difficult. Scarlet's breath trembled. Caleb squeezed her hand, voice low and sure. You were never meant to bow to people like him. Her heart stuttered. Scarlet, he said, eyes steady and unflinching. You haven't lost your life. You've only paused it. She looked up, caught, soft, breaking open. You haven't lost your future, he continued. You were never done. Silence held them, not empty, but full. And Scarlet realized this was not salvation, not rescue, not a man saving a woman. It was a man willing to stand beside her while she saved herself. And that was infinitely more dangerous. But danger was already moving. Lucas stood on a balcony across the river, glass in hand. He watched them, not with jealousy, with intention. He whispered into the night, You think you've won. But Scarlet was mine first. Lightning flickered on the horizon. The storm was close now. Very close.